Hello, I'm Mark Sumner, host of the Channel Chat podcast show, and today I have the pleasure of John Taylor, VP of EMEA Of Channels at Tanium, in the studio. How are we doing, John?
I am, what we say in Tanium, Olympic. I'm Olympic.
And you actually came here on the train today, didn't you? It was like from Knutsford?
I did, and it all worked.
Yeah,
and it
on
was
time.
Great. On time, makes a change. I won't be coming down in 2 weeks' time when they're on strike, but good timing.
Perfect. John, thanks for coming in the studio. One of the reasons I did want to get you in, because as I said to you over lunch, I was aware of Tanium only about 2 or 3 years ago. Hadn't heard of you before then in the UK, and I wanted to give the listeners a bit about the background about why you joined them, because I said to you at lunch, when I looked at your background, I thought, right, John was at Sun Microsystems, then he went into distribution, and normally people from distribution don't seem to make the transition back into vendor land. So how come you went into distribution, and then how come you actually ended up at Tanium?
So look, when I was one of my tenures at Sun, so I was there for 11 years, right? And the great thing about working for a big manufacturer like Sun was you could work your way into different roles. So I was lucky enough to have a number of different roles: end user sales management, channel recruiter, and distribution manager. And one of those roles was looking after our sole stroke exclusive distributor at the time, TPLC. Kind of fell in love with distribution. I've always had a soft spot for it. And when the opportunity arose to exit Sun, I was in touch with a guy called Samir Naji. Samir was the chairman for the Horizon Group,
Right.
and he wanted to set up a new business franchise. I was going to go from running a $250 million business and 80 sales heads into being the founder and setup of this organisation, which sounds very exciting, but when you work out you haven't got a brand, a logo, a piece of paper to quote on, or any staff, it starts to get a bit daunting. But I thought, you know what, I'm going to have a pop at this. And I loved it. Absolutely loved it. And I've always been passionate about selling and being in sales. And I think irrespective of whether you're sitting inside of distribution or you're sitting inside of a reseller or a vendor, we're all in sales, and we owe it to ourselves to be good at that.
We talked as well about diversity of experience.
Yeah.
Now, this isn't popular what I say, because every time I say it, I get in trouble. That when you're in distribution, it's really hard to get an end user sales role, because everyone thinks, oh, people in distribution, they're just fulfillment. They can't sell. Channel salespeople just cannot sell. I can't get an end user sales role. So, but you've had experience of end user and channel.
I have, yeah.
Do you think that's an advantage for you now, having that sort of, you mentioned like 360 view, because there's a lot of people now thinking, in fact, I actually said it to Mike Norris of Computer Centre, he wouldn't have someone from distribution going and work for a reseller. So how do you feel that's an advantage now?
Yeah, so first of all, I mean, what I'd say is I'd throw that comment back and say that comment probably comes from people that have never worked in distribution. If you consider the IP, the intellectual property differences between distributors, yeah, they can be a little bit marginal sometimes. So when you've got a reasonably marginal IP threshold between you and your market peers, then maybe you want your best salespeople to be able to articulate what your proposition is. So I think first and foremost that probably comes from there. Secondly, look, I think my experiences in distribution have been in specialised distribution.
Yeah.
They've not been in the commodity space. And my background has always been about growing new franchises, new businesses. And the channel needs a lot of help, yeah, when it's doing that. So this is the second tier partner channel. They need a lot of help. And they need a lot of convincing, and they want to see the gravy before they'll actually put their own money down. And that's where distribution comes in. And where distribution does a good job is by help leading those partners to the vendors and also supporting them in an end user sales campaign.
Yeah, because how does a new technology, if a vendor comes to the market and they want to come to a distributor, they're unknown, how do they get established? Because no one's knocking on the door saying, "Oh, XYZ security is great. Can I go and buy that from a reseller or distributor?" So how does the distributor and how does the vendor get a channel established?
So first of all, your channel's established by your channel salespeople, yeah, and we're in sales. So I'm quite passionate, and we again sort of referencing lunchtime. I'm very passionate about people in my organisation being sales professionals. So you won't find anyone in my channel sales team that hasn't done a direct end user sales role. Yeah. So
which is
first of all,
unusual,
yeah,
John. There's a lot of people in vendor land that haven't done any end user stuff at all. So how come you go for that straight away?
well, I think, look, I go for it straight away because, go back to my mantra, we are all in sales, okay? And when you're trying to leverage a channel and you're leveraging through your channel sales team, if that channel partner wants to walk you into an account, yeah, because they think your proposition is right for its customer, yeah, then sometimes the direct sales folk just aren't available, yeah. And I want my team to be able to step up and step in, to be able to go and talk to that bank and articulate to that bank what it is that we do and why we do it and how it's going to help them, how it's going to save them money, how it's going to stop them being breached. So I insist on having people that have been through that side of the business. Yeah, and I think that's crucial, particularly when you're in a business that's in a startup phase. And we were in a startup phase 5 years ago when I came into Tanium. We're a little bit more mature, but the criteria for hiring is still very much the same. And I think I'm a better sales professional for the fact that I've worked in a vendor, I've worked in a distributor, I've worked in a reseller, I've done end user sales, I've done sales management, I've done channel sales, I've done channel sales management. And I think that gives me a roundedness, a 360-degree view, yeah, that's really valuable. So if I'm in distribution and I've got experience of selling to an end user and I'm having a sales call with a seller in a reseller, I want to be conscious of the process they're going through, and I can't be conscious of that process unless I've done it myself.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's important. That's what sometimes is missing from our industry in terms of that cross-fertilisation. Some of the best end user sellers I've seen in Tanium, yeah, have worked across the end user sales and in channel. So one of my top performers, yeah, has joined us from the end user sales community. Yeah.
Really?
And her approach into the business is one of an end user sales perspective. Yeah. And the value she takes to her partners, yeah, is just fantastic. I've seen technical staff come up from Tanium and take end user sales roles. And again, they've been highly successful. So getting that cross fertilization of having done roles A, B, C, and D, I think is really important in terms of growing that diversity. And diversity is a really interesting word right now, isn't it?
It is, yeah, it is. And diversity of experience, because you mentioned before, like, the perception is, the best companies are vendors, then it's resellers, and then it's distribution. And then the subcategory of that is, if you're in those companies, it's end user, channel sales, and then product sales. Now, if you've gone into product sales and you're in distribution, you're at the perceived bottom of the food chain. How do you then try and get some end user experience? Because most people, in fact, you mentioned that maybe you might not take someone who's just done product sales and channel. How do they even get a chance to either get to work for a partner? Because not many people go from distribution to partners. Or also, how do they get a chance to get that end user experience without be given an opportunity? Because if you start in distribution to product sales, the perception is you're at the bottom of the food chain.
It is. I accept that, but then first of all, that individual's got to have some ambition.
Right.
Yeah. Secondly, that individual has got to understand that their managers and the people that support them in the business don't work via ESP. So they have to communicate where it is they want to take their career, and I think it's incumbent on individuals to have to tell the people that they work for where they want to take their career. Because I think when you do that and you have a mentor in the business, you don't lose people unexpectedly. So I think that's really important, okay? Retain your top talent. Recruit top talent, but then retain it, okay? So these individuals, have got to make it known where they've got to go. So that's, I think, step number one. Step two, they've got to have a decent mentor that will take them along that journey. And a mentor doesn't have to be the person that you report to. Yeah, a mentor could be someone else, maybe in that area that you aspire to move to. Yeah, and then they've got to use their job to sell themselves. Okay, it's no good someone just telling me how good they are. I want to go on a meeting with them and see how good they are, and I want to see them put that skill set into action, and then for me to understand how they could flourish when they take that perceived step up. Yeah, and I think that's how you do it. Yeah, you got to be patient. I heard Driscoll on your program a few weeks ago, and he was talking about I think he was talking about millennials and things wanting to happen very, very quickly. Yeah. You know, I started off in the IT industry in 1990, right? And you have to be patient. You have to be patient, and irrespective of where you want your career to take you, you also have to have a path to follow, and you've got to be quite clear about that path. You can change it, yeah, but you've got to communicate it as well.